Step number 5, how to send money to buy a property in Brazil. Sending money to Brazil is actually quite complex and it is difficult to understand for people from other countries. If you're sending a wire transfer from the US to the UK, chances are, it doesn't matter if you're sending $100,000, if you're sending $1 million, chances are this wire transfer is going to go through without any trouble. If you're sending money to Brazil, even if it is like a $10,000 wire transfer, this money is not going to go automatically to the seller's account. Trust me. The money is going to go into the seller's account bank, and the bank is going to hold the money until the seller can provide a lot of documents to justify why they are receiving the $10,000. So there are some historic reasons why Brazil is that concerned about monies coming from abroad, but the truth is, whenever someone sends a wire transfer to Brazil, money is not released automatically, and it depends on the bank that is handling the transaction in Brazil. To have a wire transfer release, it could easily take from 2 to 3 weeks, right? So again, if you're sending wire transfer from the US to the UK, maybe this transaction is going to take a day, a couple of days maximum. In Brazil, regular timeline, it could be a couple of weeks or even 3 weeks, right? There are some better ways of sending the money. Our law firm, we do have a partnership with a bank specializing in currency exchange. So that's all they do, right? Like they handle wire transfers, they handle payments from abroad, they send the money abroad, and they have this expertise. So in our case, instead of a couple of weeks or even 3 weeks sometimes, we usually have a turnaround for, these, money transfers, a couple of days, sometimes even 3 days. But, it's really faster than regular banks. Another thing for you to consider whenever you're sending money to buy a property in Brazil, in our practice, the way we tell our clients is like this. Instead of sending the money directly to the seller, you send the money to our firm, right? As your lawyer, we receive the money, we go to the bank and we issue a certified check. The certified check is then taken to the closing, right? And we're not going to give the monies, we're not going to give access to the funds to the seller until we have the document transferring the title of the property signed by the seller, right? Because if you're sending the money, think with me, if you're sending the money from your bank abroad to the seller's account in Brazil, you cannot control the timing, right? You cannot send the money and tell the bank, listen, don't release the monies until the seller is signing the transfer of the property, right? The title transfer document. So you send the money and then the seller gets your money and then all your leverage is gone because now the seller has your money in your pocket. And I don't know, maybe the closing is like a couple of days down the road, something could happen to the seller. Maybe the seller, I don't know, changes her mind, or something happens to the seller, maybe she gets involved in a traffic accident. So you don't want to run that risk. So our advice, whenever you're sending money, the down payment is an exception, right? The down payment, particularly if you're following our advice, you're going to be sending just a small percentage. Maybe you're sending 5%, maybe you're sending 10%. But the balance is what you should be paying attention to, like the 90% of how much you're paying for the property. That's the money that you should not send the seller before the closing date. That's something for you to give access to the seller only during closing, only after the transfer, the title is signed by the seller, right? If you have a bank account in Brazil, instead of sending the money to your lawyer, you could also send your money from your account abroad. If you live in the UK, from your UK's bank account to your personal account in Brazil. And then you could basically do the same thing that we would do as your lawyers. You can go to your bank account in Brazil, right? Now think with me, you have two bank accounts. You have one bank account in your country and you have one bank account in Brazil. You send your money from your bank account in your country to your bank account in Brazil. And then you physically go. You cannot do that over the phone, right? Don't expect things to work remotely. They don't work like that in Brazil. You gotta go physically to your bank branch in Brazil and then ask for a certified check. You gotta give them enough time for them to draft such check, and then you take this check and then you're gonna take the check to the closing, right? So these are some considerations of how to send the money to buy a property in Brazil. Of course, the overall process is more complex than that, but in general lines, these are the main factors that we usually pay attention to when representing our clients.